Monday in Port Charles, a trial no one expected, a plea no one wants, and a promise Michael can't take back. The streets of Port Charles have a way of humming before a storm, the low, hard-to-place vibration of secrets moving underfoot, of loyalties shifting like gravel. Monday's episode turns that hum into a drumbeat. A calendar reshuffle no one saw coming throws Willow Tate and Nina Reeves into a courtroom hours ahead of schedule, a tea service at the Quartermain estate curdles into a gauntlet, and a brother's quiet appeal to do the right thing collides with a father's ferocious vow to protect his children at any cost. What begins as a day of small obligations and polite rituals rapidly fractures into a reckoning. The morning opens at the Quartermain mansion, where Brooke Lynn is determined to make good on her promise to host a genteel tea for Veronica Ronnie Bard. Silver gleams, porcelain clicks, and the Quartermain garden looks disarmingly peaceful in the glazed light. Stella Henry arrives with her characteristic warmth, and the kind of intuition that always arrives a few steps ahead of the facts. She doesn't name names at first, but she doesn't need to. When Stella's eyes slide toward the door that Tracy Quartermain is likely to stride through, everyone at the table understands that polite company is about to meet classic Tracy. Ronnie, who has made a career out of reading rooms and wrong-footing the powerful, goes from delighted guest to delighted witness, predicting that things will get interesting before the lemon cakes are served. She isn't wrong. Tracy doesn't simply enter a scene, she alters its weather, and the clink of spoons becomes the scratch of a match. Across town, the courthouse buzzes with a different kind of anticipation, the tight, metallic kind that turns whisper into rumor and rumor into panic. No one thought the Willow and Nina matter would be called this soon, no one is ready, least of all the women at the center of it. The file is heavy with grievances and light on catharsis. It isn't merely about criminal liability or technical culpability, it's about too many nights when love was mistaken for ownership, and truth was treated like currency to be spent instead of light to be revealed. The court clerk's voice is crisp, mercilessly ordinary as it announces the case. Heads swivel. Texts fly. And in the corridor, a woman exhales like someone stepping onto thin ice. Nathan West finds Nina before she steps inside, a steady presence in a hallway that suddenly feels too narrow. He is not here to deliver sermons or confer absolution, he is here with the most unglamorous gift a loved one can offer, perspective. The plea on the table is unsatisfying to anyone with pride and a long memory. Accepting it would mean swallowing a story she doesn't fully believe and letting strangers place a period where she still insists there's a comma. Yet Nathan knows the math of risk, he knows that courtrooms can behave like weather systems, beautiful in theory, brutal in practice. He asks Nina, gently but insistently, whether the surest path forward might be the one that offends her heart and protects her future. Her answer lives in a tangle of loyalty to herself, regret she can't measure, and the stubborn belief that if only the full truth were visible at once, no plea would be necessary. But full truths rarely arrive intact. They are assembled, painstakingly, under pressure. Back at the mansion, the tea party reaches a boiling point disguised as banter. Tracy's presence is a lesson in legacy, the way power is inherited like a brooch and wielded like a blade. Brooke Lynn, to her credit, refuses to be merely decorative. She is the hostess, yes, but also a gatekeeper, an artist and a Quartermain, constantly translating between melody and money. Olivia, who knows better than most that families are like nations with their own constitutions, slips between peacekeeper and co-conspirator, her smile a truce flag and a dare. Ronnie sips, studies, and files everything away. The confrontation, when it arrives, is not a thunderclap but a series of small, precise cuts, old slides dressed up as new advice, futures evaluated like assets on a ledger. Stella, who warned that trouble was coming, becomes the quiet conscience of the room, reminding everyone, without quite saying it, that tradition without tenderness is just control with better china. Then the real rupture, a message streaks through Port Charles, court has been moved up, the Willow Nina case is being heard now, and suddenly the day's itinerary is laughable. Drew Kane hears it and stops mid-argument, mid-stride, mid-thought. He has played so many roles for this city, soldier, savior, sinner, and still the question that slams into him is simple and paralyzing, how? How did the gears shift so quickly? How did a process placed on a measured timetable erupt into a crisis that seems designed to catch everyone unprepared? There is a difference between surprise and design, and Drew feels, in his bones, the cold outline of the latter. When schedules jump the line in Port Charles, it usually means someone pushed. Inside the courtroom, order is something the judge requests and chaos politely declines. Attorneys posture with the grace of fencers. Witness lists are shuffled, then reshuffled, the names acquiring weight by the minute. Willow sits like someone trying to keep her spine and her compassion in the same body. Nina sits like someone who has learned the hard way that stillness can be a kind of armor. The gallery, pulsing with divided loyalties, becomes a mirror for the city itself, families spliced and respliced, alliances drafted and redrafted, everyone convinced that their piece of the truth is the truth entire. The first surprise lands early. A procedural twist that cleaves the case into two narratives, one about facts and one about motives, each threatening to swallow the other. Gasps ripple. The judge hammers for silence. Somewhere in the back row, a phone vibrates with a message that will be read out of order and believed out of context. In that tempest, Dante Falconeri locates Michael Corinthos not with a warrant but with an appeal. Dante's strength has always been his stubborn humanity, the way he carries the badge without letting it carry him. He makes the case in words that sound less like a lecture and more like the way good men try to save each other from themselves. If there's any part of this mess that is yours, he tells Michael, step into the light and own it. The law can be merciful when it meets confession halfway. Families can survive almost anything except perpetual evasion. Dante is not accusing so much as pleading. He knows what happens here will be measured in more than charges and sentences. It will be measured in the lives of children who learn, by watching, what strength looks like. Michael hears all of it, and chooses a different gospel. Fatherhood has refined him and radicalized him in equal measure. He says, in substance if not those exact words, that he will not confess what he did not do, and that even if he had crossed lines, he would do it again if the alternative were watching his children pay for his scruples. The vow lands with the weight of a promise and the sharpness of a threat. It is the kind of statement that looks noble framed on a wall and looks dangerous scrawled across real life. The more Dante presses on duty, the more Michael presses on blood. He is not being glib, he is being elemental. In Michael's calculus, survival is not an abstract virtue, it is a daily assignment, and his family is the reason he turns it in on time. The chasm between them widens by inches and then all at once. Dante's concern shifts from hypothetical wrongdoing to imminent fallout. If the city is right, and if someone, somewhere, manufactured the appearance that Willow was framed, then the line between investigator and target will blur with lethal speed. Drew is already standing too close to the blast radius, and Dante knows how fast rumors become justifications in a town that writes its own legend. He does not voice the worst of his fears, but they flicker across his face, the possibility that tempers will escalate outside the courtroom, that a desperate man will reach for a final answer, that righteous anger will misfire and someone who has survived far worse will not survive this. Back at the mansion, the tea has gone cold, the pastries untouched. Brooke Lynn, who has built a career on keeping timing, feels the day slip off beat and refuses to miss her cue. She pivots the gathering from spectacle to strategy, turning Ronnie's amused observations into intel and Stella's cautions into marching orders. Tracy deflects with the practiced ease of a woman who has never admitted a loss she couldn't name a victory by another name. Olivia draws a breath that might be resignation and might be resolve. The Quartermaines are never more themselves than in crisis, fractious, brilliant, infuriating, and, when it counts, formidable. At court, the center does not hold so much as wobble. The surprising turn that fells the room isn't a witness changing sides or a piece of evidence materializing out of nowhere. It's the dawning realization that intent will be the true battlefield. Facts can be catalogued and cross-examined, motives are messier, slipperier, the province of memory and fear and the stories people tell themselves about who they are. For Willow, intent has always been wrapped in care, sometimes too much care, the smother becoming indistinguishable from the embrace. For Nina, intent has been a plea to be seen, even when her methods made seeing her harder. The lawyers reduce these complexities to mottos and arrows. The judge demands clarity. The audience wants a verdict that punishes and heals at once. The law, infuriatingly, can promise only one of those. Drew's howl lodges in the proceedings like a splinter. He is neither defendant nor disinterested party, and that ambiguity has its own gravity. His presence in the hallway draws whispers, his history turns those whispers into theories. He inventories the faces he trusts and the ones he doesn't, the texts he sent and the ones he shouldn't have, the favors he owes and the debts he has no intention of paying. Drew has learned that Port Charles plays chess on 3 boards at once, legal, moral, and personal. Today, the boards have been stacked, and a single careless move could topple all 3. He is not armed with a smoking gun or a triumphant revelation, only questions, the most corrosive tool the city knows. By afternoon, the mansion's skirmish and the courthouse's conflagration begin to rhyme. Power is a current, it finds its level. Brooke Lynn's resolve sharpens into action, calls are made, and not all of them polite. Ronnie's curiosity hardens into investment, she never watches a storm without measuring where the lightning will strike next. Stella places a quiet hand on a younger woman's shoulder and reminds her, with simple words and a steadier gaze, that cruelty rarely tells the truth about the person who receives it. Tracy, with the practiced cadence of a matriarch who is traded in prophecy, warns that the Quartermaines will not be diminished in their own house. It is both a threat and a promise. Evening threatens but does not arrive, because time inside crisis always distorts. Dante and Michael's conversation ends not with a handshake or a slammed door, but with a silence that acknowledges how far apart they now stand. Dante has asked for the path of contrition, Michael has chosen the path of defiance in the name of love. Neither man is entirely wrong, neither is remotely comfortable. What remains between them is the question that will govern the days ahead, when the law and loyalty intersect at a blind corner, who yields? As court recesses on the chaos rather than concluding with clarity, Willow and Nina breathe as if the air has changed. A plea remains on the table, squared and neat. It is both an exit ramp and a confession that doesn't fit either woman's story of herself. Nathan doesn't push, he anchors. He will not allow Nina to be defined by her worst choice or her most wounded day, but he will also not let her pretend that choices have no cost. The two truths sit side by side like counsel at defense and prosecution, each making an argument that cannot be fully dismissed. Port Charles absorbs it all and, as it always does, prepares for morning. The Quartermaine estate will repaint the afternoon as a minor tempest, even as new battle lines are drawn across table runners and family trees. The courthouse will shuffle calendars and shuffle lives. Dante will write notes by hand, because that's how he clears the noise from his thinking. Michael will stand at a window after the house is quiet and tell himself, again, that protection and love are synonyms, even when their means look like war. Drew will lie awake with the word how echoing, each repetition turning into another, more dangerous question, who? On Monday in Port Charles, the tea grows cold, the gavel grows tired, and a father's promise grows teeth. A trial begins before anyone is ready, a plea hovers like a parachute no one wants to pull, and a city that has seen everything prepares to see more. The debris field from this day will be vast, strewn across living rooms and court dockets, over dinner tables and hospital corridors. And yet the heartbeat under the wreckage is familiar, people who love too hard and too sideways, trying to rescue each other with tools that sometimes look like weapons. The verdict will come later. For now, the sentence is suspense, the bail is faith, and Port Charles, restless, relentless, waits for the next move.